That's what I think is cool about the Moonboard is it's effective in its simplicity and how it makes you do those things. Like its purpose is to make you feel uncomfortable. And that is effective for getting strong and for getting strong outside.
100%.
But like you just said, it's also why it can be dangerous to easily overdo it on that board. But that's the risk you take. I have a saying. It's like progression is found on the line between injury and going nowhere, and that board really helps you tote that line. You're really toting that line on that board. It's a tightrope on that board.
That's a good little saying there, man, and it's really true. This is what's tricky. Is I'm always like, don't get injured, don't get injured, don't get injured. Getting injured sucks. 2 steps back, like you really screw yourself. But if you're not willing to get into that realm where injury might be possible, then you, like, almost by definition, progression requires you to progress past what you can do. You know what I mean? Like, progression requires you to head into this kind of gray area of like, it is a little dangerous. Okay, new series here on Testpiece. It's called Board Talk. It's a reoccurring series, another recurring series happening about once a month with Michael Rosato, focused on all things boards. We did launch Good Temps. You might know some of those guys. Uh-huh. And the truth is, man, just had so much fun with you last time. I think we both knew that we were going to do multiple board episodes, but between us enjoying it so much, and honestly, all the listeners, like all the comments, the messages, just the sheer amount of downloads made me feel like I was really confident. Dude, let's do this every month, or at least every month, or we can promise at least once a month. And I think that our structure that we're going to start out with is focusing on any kind of big media events that happen, cool videos on boards, history on board, any kind of media that comes out that we're all consuming, maybe a badass Instagram reel of someone doing crazy one-arm leaps. And then it'll, inevitably lead us into maybe a topic of the day, maybe something maybe a little more narrow in the board space that isn't just the news. I think we might end up talking about setting on boards, and no promises there that this will be the forever structure, but there's been some big media this month, and you may have been part of it. Just as a reminder, Michael, you are the director of marketing at Tension Climbing. You also host their YouTube channel, and that's the last time I'm going to introduce you, Michael. Next time it's just you and me, bud.
It's all good, man. I think it's good. I think it's good to remind people who I am. I'm just that nobody that likes boards.
Well, don't you think everyone, if they're watching, they'll be like, oh, I know this guy, but sometimes podcasts, like, although you have a pretty distinctive voice, dude, from the South.
Distinctive voice. Like, where the hell is this guy from? Yeah, I am from the South. So if you guys are wondering, that is that. It doesn't always sound super Southern. I think it's gotten a little bit of the, I've gotten a little bit of the Southern out since I've been in Colorado for 8 years, but it's still in there somewhere, especially if get a little whiskey in me. You definitely can hear it. So maybe I won't pop open this.
I just want, for everyone listening, Michael just glanced surreptitiously to the right where perhaps there is a bottle of whiskey. It's also 11:30 in the morning.
Look. Josh bought me a great bottle of Irish whiskey not too long ago, and I passed it on the way up, and I was like, you know what? I know it's 11:30, but there's nothing wrong with wetting your whistle. And I was just telling Josh, I was like, maybe we just call this bourbon and boards, or boards and bourbon, or something like that. Maybe we should do it later in the day.
I like how you started at first by saying bourbon and boards, because that was your priority. You were like, it's the bourbon. We could also call it bourbon, boards, and tool. We got into it last time. Got some comments there.
And bands. Yeah.
Okay.
Bourbon, boards, and bands.
Well, I just, like I said, man, following the psych, I had so much fun last time. And the truth is, dude, it's because we've been climbing on boards for like 15 years. I mean, maybe even longer for you. And we both have just been stunned with the growth of the community. You had a bunch of reels go viral last episode, just kind of about the community itself. So not just the act of climbing, not just the training that can be done on there, but like the people around it, the friends you make. I love that comment that you made about each board being its own little bouldering area, as if this is Bishop, this is Fontainebleau. And when you said that, really, really got me. And so getting to do a consistent podcast that highlights our community that we spend a lot of time in, I feel privileged to do that and happy to do it with you, man.
Yeah, man. I'm psyched to be. I really do. And I think the reason those went viral is like a lot of people are doing it, and they spend a lot of time and a lot of effort on the ascents that are on these boards. And they're finally like, oh my gosh, we're getting some recognition. Like it's not just it's not just logged on the app, right? Like people are talking about what's going on in this world. And there's a lot of people doing it. There's just so many people doing it. So I think this is going to be great.
Okay, well, good segue into me talking about myself instead of just logging it on the app.
What have you been up to, dude?
Well, so, I've got a podcast and I post stories on there sometimes. And I had recently posted a story of myself climbing a beautiful boulder up here in Tahoe. It's called Welcome to the Future. It's an iconic, just beautiful boulder. And I think it gets 8A and it's kind of slopey and great. People were happy to see me up there doing it. The next week, I posted a video of me on the TB2 doing a V13 called The Prince, and people loved it way more. And so I just found that interesting. I don't know if it's just the grades there, but I just found it interesting that the engagement and the time that people took to say, good job, or that was dope, much higher on a random board climb that most people haven't tried. And I thought that was so, yeah, thanks for giving me a chance to let everyone know instead of just logging on the app with my 5-word comment.
Dude, that and I will say, a lot of those, you can look in the app and there's a grade spread, there's usually like an average for it. And there's a lot of people that are sometimes like, this is V12. Oh, this is V10, whatever. That one's a solid V13. So you should give yourself credit. I think Noah Wheeler set that one. It's tough. I've tried it. It is not an easy boulder. Have not done it. It is. So be proud of yourself. That is a sick ascent.
I am proud. And my comment in the app is that I think I might be the oldest person to do. I don't know what a confirmed V13 means on the board. It's a classic. I'm going to call that confirmed. And yeah, that's my I'm putting out into the world. Like, I think although, dude, I was watching, well, we'll get into this, some board media. I was watching the Moonboard. I think it was the OG Moonboard, a video where Ben Moon and Sam Pryor go and climb on like a 2010 set. And Ben had set like a V11 on there that looked nails. It looked nails. And then he said he did it at 43. I'm 39. He did it at 43. And I thought maybe that could be harder. I don't know.
Dude, Ben is a brick house. I was watching those too. And you can tell, like, when he does moves, he may not be in his prime or anything, but he still locks it up. There's nothing relaxed up. He's rigid. The dude is still strong as hell.
59, dude. He's 59 right now.
I know, man. It's impressive. I hope to God I can do that when I'm 59. I don't know. By then I might be into kayaks or some shit because my hands hurt like hell at 35. So I don't know what it's going to be like then. But
dude, this one time I was talking to Tyler Nelson on the pod, and I kind of had like this cheeky comment. Hey, Tyler, so are we all going to have arthritis when we're older? And I kind of asked it in what I thought was like a joking manner. And he just looked at me and was like, yes. And there was no explanation. There was no like, oh, but you can mitigate it. It was just, yeah, you're fucked. Good luck.
No,
yeah.
Dude, I look at my knuckles, and some of it is just inflamed from just years of doing exactly what we're about to talk about. But there's also parts of my knuckles that it looks like just straight up arthritis. Like it's not a synovitis type thing. It's kind of on the tops of it's just like bumps coming off the first digit on the top there. yeah, I'm a dunner. I'm done for.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I don't know. If Ben can do it, maybe there's hope for all of us.
I do have this general thing or hope that when you continue to use something, like it's like if we stop climbing, maybe our fingers get stiff and swollen and start to seize up. But it's almost like if you ask your body to do something every day or every couple of days, because you have this on injuries sometimes too, where you feel like, oh, I hurt myself, I'll never get better. But then you just kind of keep showing up and chipping away. And if you sit around and do nothing for an injury, it seems to just kind of stabilize. It's like you have to ask your body to perform. So if we keep climbing until we're 59, maybe we can keep climbing till we're 69.
I hope so. And honestly, I think variety is key, man. If you do the same thing all the time, like you're kind of asking for it, especially the older you get. And I said this last time, like younger people, it's like they're made of rubber. It's like it doesn't really hurt them the same way it hurts you when you get older. You get all stiff and shit. And so I think that you just gotta change it up. Change it up. Look after yourself. Maybe don't go as long as you used to. Like maybe make the session a little shorter year after year. But yeah, I think we can do it. I think we'll be fine.
We're totally going to talk more about this later. But
let's not turn this into an old guy show.
No. This is not. This is me highlighting the young guys. We'll talk about Board Lords episode number 7 with Hamish MacArthur, Sean Hutchins McCallan. Did I do that right there?
No. Damn it. Before we get started, I want to say there was 3 things that I noticed from last time that I got wrong. So I want to make sure I correct myself here.
Here you go.
So it's actually Houchins. He says everybody says it's Hutchins, but honestly, everybody just knows him as Sean RHM. And I understand why he's got a double last name and all that. But anyway, yeah, it's Houchins. And thank God we had to redo the Board Lord 7. We had to redo the intro. And I was able to make sure I said it correctly, because I know last time I said his name several times. I was like, oh shit, I did not get that right. So it's Houchins. So Houchins, everybody. Anyway, the other thing I want to say is I mentioned the boulder on BL5 that Colin and Nathaniel, the Board Lords 5, that Colin and Nathaniel were on. The second boulder, I said last time that it had been done several times from the ground at the set angle. Luca Martins, very strong dude over in England. He came in with the actually comment. It actually has not been done at the angle we set it at. It's been done 5 degrees less steep. So correction there. That's still a project. I think he came in with it because he's been sieging that thing, and I hope he does it, because I'm no doubt that's 8C. Just no doubt in my mind. But anyway, so thanks, Luca. That you're right. That's still a project. So good on you for catching that. The other one I want to say is I mentioned the young crusher who did Deus, the hardest boulder from Board Lords 1 at the set angle. That was not Josh Bresler. It's Julian Bresler. Dude, so look up Julian, because that dude is a monster. And you'll probably see him on a Board Lords one day. But anyway, just want to make sure everybody knows I caught myself on a few of those. Thanks for the actuallys. Keep them coming.
Yeah, dude, we want to put out accurate information here.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep up though, because all those names, I mean, I recognize those names because I cruise board Instagram, but those guys are so good and so strong. And when you see these Board Lords episodes, there's an element that I'm guessing you guys want. I mean, look, Hamish MacArthur is Hamish MacArthur, and we'll get into this more, but guys like Sean RHM, in this domain, there's a lot of really, really strong people. And I just wanted to throw this out there, Michael, because this was on my notes, and this was a good segue. I love Board Lords. I got a lot of messages about just what a great sporting event this was. Board Lords episode, specifically number 7. It just felt people were like low key more excited than a World Cup. Saw that on YouTube. But it also made me wonder if you guys are ever going to do more competitions, or it is a competition right now, kind of tongue in cheek. And I was like thinking, what if you guys allowed people to qualify in the sense of there was 5 V14s on the boards that was set by you guys. Maybe it tested a bunch of different kinds of abilities, whatever. It doesn't even matter. 5 hard boulders. You do them all. You send in your video, and it's like, okay, you're in heat number 1 or whatever. Like we will, I don't know if you'll fly them out or whatever, but just kind of like making it possible for all these board lords to demonstrate their board lordness on the big stage.
Yeah. No, we have definitely thought about this a lot. And honestly, we want to create a good format for it. We don't want to just willy-nilly roll something out that has a lot of problems and holes in it. So it's something that we're definitely thinking about. But I will say one thing that what you're talking about, like sort of a remote competition, in my mind, whatever the format is, we will end up doing something like that. This is what I want to happen. What I want to happen is we do have a remote situation. And maybe it is that we started domestically first, just because we got to start somewhere. Of course, I want to open it up internationally, and maybe we can, I don't know. But I just think as far as the test run and the trial run to see how this is going to go, I think what we would do is open it up domestically. There's like a qualifier situation. And then we partner with regional facilities, certain regional facilities. And then if you move up to semis or whatever, then you have to go to those regional facilities. You have to compete within a span of time or a specific day, depending on what that format is. And then for the finals, I'm willing to fly the finalists to Denver, where we are. And then we would film it, host it, make it a whole big deal. That's what I really want to do. So yes, we've definitely thought about it. It's in the cards. We're going to do it. We just got a lot of moving parts with tension at the moment. And so as soon as some of those things calm down on the back end, we're going to be putting some time and effort into organizing that, because it would be insane.
All right. Totally put you on the spot there. But it's just, I mean, I think what it is that Board Lords as a series has become very popular. And it just seems to me that people are, including me, are aching for it to go even further. And I know we're going to try not to be biased on tension here in general. But this was one of the bigger media drops that came out. And I just think in general, what you guys are showcasing is that, again, it's a community that's exciting, that is creating a kind of class of climbers that are excellent at this amazing thing. And so, yes, I asked you as an extension of Board Lords, and maybe a attention faculty, but I would love to see it for all of it. And I think my other question for you is, how different are boards around the world? Like, because I think that's why you need to have an event, is the idea of like the distributed competition or the remote competition. Like, that's cool, but you got to know that you're on the same playing field like to really crown the board lord.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that's why I think the finals, we'd have to have like in person on the board on one, here's the thing. If a hold is a couple degrees off, you might be able to get away with certain things. But I do think that if you're doing, say, a list of boulders like that utilize a lot of different holds, I think by the time you get to finals, you will have done enough, I think, to qualify for finals, But I do think you're right. A certain degree, it needs to happen in one place so that you can make sure that everyone is competing on the exact same thing. And something I've talked about when, let's say, for the example I just gave you, let's say it's a regional situation. Like, I think that we would work with the facility to make sure everything is exactly right before they throw. We couldn't do that on the grassroots level as far as like qualifying for the semis or something like that. But I do think that we would work with the facilities we partner with in the different regions to double check that everything is as right as it can be. So yeah, the other thing I want to say about it is, I mean, you were during the Board Lord 7, you were there.
It was awesome.
It is awesome. But it's not, people do have to realize it's not exactly the same as what you're seeing on YouTube.
It's better. Sorry.
It is better, but there are these downtimes where like they are actually trying to work out the stuff, and it's not like there's cheerleaders sitting there and making sure everybody's, hyped the whole way through. There are some downtime and some time where the athletes are working out the boulders, and what you see on YouTube, we're splicing together some of the more interesting and exciting parts of it. But yeah, I do want to turn it into an event. And I think that we are probably not far off from where I would like to start inviting people, at least locally, to watch some of these, because I really do. I think that having people there in the background and then getting commentary from them about what they think and all of that, like that's all a part of it. I'm trying to turn this thing into a sport because then people will really start taking notice. And then when they put the thing in their gym, they'll actually start focusing on what those people are doing back there, and they might have events themselves and start fostering that culture of people that are in the back of the gym. Yeah, that's what I want.
Okay, well, as we started off the show, we said that we'd talk about the biggest media events of the last month in the board category. And I don't know if both episodes have came out during the past month, but the two Board Lord episodes, episode number 6 with Allison Vest and Kyra Condie, and episode 7 with Hamish MacArthur, Noah Wheeler, and Sean RHM. Those are competitions on the TB2 and spray wall.
They're not really competitions. They're really not. They were not designed to be competitions. You set it up. No, dude, you teed it up. I'm trying to this is the big media event, the videos I want to talk about, but just describe, just in case we have 3 listeners who have not somehow watched Board Lords, please tell me what the Board Lords series on YouTube represents or is. Yeah, so essentially it's just the guys at Tension are making boulders for a select group of climbers. And really all we're doing is we are documenting their time on these boulders and just giving them a span of, 2 to 3 hours for them to just see what they can do on these boulders. Of course, it kind of naturally takes shape of a competition, and we all jokingly in the background are like, who do you think's gonna win? But it's not really like that. I really try to not make it feel like a competition to the people who are involved, because that's a lot of pressure, and really I just want it to be a good time and just have them do their very best on these boulders in the time frame that they have. So yeah, and then we document it. A big part of it is we have a set template of how we do each one of these episodes that we've kind of stuck with from the beginning, where we introduce the people involved, the athletes that come in, and then we spend a brief time breaking down the 2 boulders that we give them. So on the TB2, there is obviously a mirror layout and a spray layout. And at the Tension Training Center, we have both of those. And so every single time we have one on the mirror, one on the spray, and we do it what we call the boulder breakdown. And it's before they start climbing, Quinn and I, behind the scenes, we film footage of us breaking down the boulder and telling you every little piece that we can about it. And that part is really important because it brings context to what's happening, right? Boards are all 2D, they're 2-dimensional. And it's tough when you're filming these things to really understand what's going on if you're not shooting them from the right angle. And it's just tough to understand why exactly they're hard. You can slap a grade on it and you can see somebody fall off of something, but it's really tough to understand why they're hard. So we try as best we can to break down each of these boulders for you to understand why it is these are hard and why it's going to be challenging and how they've been made to challenge these athletes. So that's part of it. And then we let them loose. We show them the boulders just like you would in a finals competition, right? They get to look at it for a second and then they go for it. And then we document it. So that's it.
Dude, I think that maybe it's easier to understand the difficulty on a board when it's 2D. In some ways, the 3D nature of things on, say, a bigger red or a dihedral, sometimes when you wrap yourself around some arete, you can use a nothing hold because your whole body is around it. I actually think that one of the appeal on boards is you look at the hold, you're like, that hold's small. And they're like, that hold is also small. And then they fly between them. And that's also, I think, the reason why the community springs up out of this stuff is I can go try that boulder, or it's oh, I know that hold. like that. Oh, I hate that. Or, and I only use it on 25 degrees, not 55 degrees. So,
well, yeah. And I would say that maybe it is easier to understand just because there's not much dimension going on. But I guess the other aspect I should say about Board Lords is the fact that we try to make a lot of these more complex than your normal board climbs. These climbs are not just jump boulders. There may be a jump move in them, but there is a lot of intricacy to these boulders, and we spend a lot of time trying to make them like that. So I think that's the difference there, is that these boulders that we're giving them are not just your run-of-the-mill climbs that you come across. I think that there is a lot of subtlety to every single one of them. And sometimes the subtlety is in the feet, and that's tough to understand. From a 2D, or if you're just standing back from, you can't really tell how bad a foot is. You can't really tell subtle orientations of things. So anyway, point being is I really think Quinn and I always joke about it because my father-in-law, Barry, he used to be a climber. So he understands climbing fundamentally. He did a lot of sport climbing back in the day. He doesn't do it much anymore. He's in the 70s. But I showed him Board Lords, one of the first ones, and he was totally captivated. And it was because, I was just watching him because I'm like, this is going to give me a lot of information here. And it was because of the boulder breakdown that he was locked in for the entire time, because he could really understand, having never really climbed on a board before, he could really understand why these things were difficult down to a very granular level. And so he just stayed so engaged with it. And then I tried to show him a spray wall episode, which is not really that. It's much more just vlog style, us climbing on it, and he just wasn't as interested. So it was two different, they were both 2D surfaces, but he just was not near as interested because he couldn't understand why something was hard. He couldn't easily understand it, I would say. So it's a big part of it.
I love the boulder breakdown, and there's always this running joke in the comments about you and Quinn being,
I know what you're going to say,
just being like extremely strong, like just like doing the moves. And I'm kind of curious, you guys do all the moves or most of the moves, or, and I don't know, I'm guessing you guys aren't sitting there working the boulder for 10 sessions in order to highlight you doing one move on the climb. And so I'm wondering what the difference is between you guys doing the moves on these climbs and then actually sending the boulder, and why it seems like there's such a big gap in what you guys do in demonstrating the moves versus them sending it.
Yeah. Well, you'll notice there's usually a lot of cuts. You'll notice the subtle back and forth between us explaining it and then the footage of us doing it. It's because we try to do as much of the sequence as we can in a given go, but we really are only doing one to a few of the moves on these climbs at a time. Granted, the days that we film these, that is a really hard day. Every time we do it, it is a hard climbing day because if you think about the last one, we're working basically to nails 14 to 15 boulders, whatever they end up being. They're hard. So it's almost like we're rapid fire projecting them to film this stuff because we usually do it in one day or one session. So yeah, we're not doing the climbs. We are doing them move by move or some links within the climbs, but it's a whole other ball game putting all of those moves together. So we're strong enough to do the moves, which is great because otherwise we have to call somebody in to. I mean, Quinn could handle it by himself, frankly, but
I feel like Quinn was looking pretty good on some of those boulders. I was like, damn, Quinn.
So we'll get into this, but the Board Lord 7 boulders were not doing any of the shorties any favors. And so there were some times when we were filming the breakdown for this one, I was like, first of all, we screwed up. We fucked up on this one because it's getting hot in the training center right now. We have no AC in there. The summer we're not filming any of these in the summer. So we messed up because we waited after the fact to do the breakdown on this one. And it was hot in there. And a lot of these moves are just out of my range. And I was getting pissed. I was like, dude, I'm just not going to be in this one. Like, you're just going to have to because, I'm 5'7", and I do have a large arm span, thank God. But, Quinn's 6 foot, and he's got a massive arm span, and he was much more comfortable on this last round of boulders. And so I was just like, yeah, you might just have to do these by yourself, man. This is rough.
Okay, then let's dive into episode 7 of Board Lords. It just dropped just a little bit ago.
Did you want to talk about the Allison Kyra one first, or you want to go straight into 7? Because I do want to talk about that one. That one did drop after our last episode, so we weren't able to touch on it. I alluded to it, but I didn't get to.
Okay, let's get
that
into
one was huge.
Allison Kyra is awesome. As we started heading into the shorty beta, and it made me think of the different. But okay, we're putting a pin in that. We'll come right back to it. Episode 6, Allison Vest, Kyra Condie, really good climbs on. I got to do. I wasn't there. I was not there, but due to how the boards work, I got to climb the one on the mirror sugar for a pill.
Yeah, sugar for the pill. Yeah.
So good, dude. So fun. But yeah, how'd that one come to be? Give me as much behind the scenes as you are allowed to say. How did that Board Lord episode come to be?
Totally. So we love Kyra and Allison. They've been friends of tension for a long time. Their social media dynamic is so awesome. Like, they do so many funny reels all the time that most of them go viral. So we were just like, look, we want the dynamic, because that's the thing about Board Lords that people I think overlook is you can get some strong individuals in there, but if you don't have the banter to carry it through, it's not near as good as what you get. And I think that to me is more important than anything. So I just wanted their dynamic in an episode. Now, this one was particularly tricky because they are not the same kind of climber on the boards. And Allison will be first to tell you that. In fact, she said it all through the episode. Kyra is a true board lord. When I first met Kyra, and I said this in the episode, she had come to the shop and she was ripping around on the beast with us, and she was a monster. And so she's just very good at that style.
Didn't she grow up is it Minneapolis? Like, that's kind of got a famous board scene. Like,
I think it was the A. I may be wrong. I don't know if that's the one she was talking about, but I know she climbed there. So, but yeah, we've got to do a spray wall episode of that thing, because it's one of the best in the country. But yeah, she grew up climbing that style, so she was very comfortable on boards, just jumping, snatching, that whole just rugged style. She's great at. Allison, on the other hand, that's not her wheelhouse, and she was the first to admit that. And when I was trying to get this together on the back end, I had some conversations with her, and she was straight up. She was worried about it. She was like, I just am not the same kind of climber on boards. I'm just not. I don't know what you're expecting. And I was like, look, I don't give a shit. Like, I just want y'all together. I want that dynamic. We're going to do the best we can do to make it the best we can. All I want you to do is show up and do your best and just have a good time. And she's like, all right, okay, all right. And the end result was as strong as Kyra. If you guys haven't seen it, Kyra, she crushed those boulders. She flashed the first one, which was to be expected.
It was hard. That's the one I did. It was no joke.
I will say I did not expect that. But did not expect her to flash it. I thought she might at least try it like three or five times before she, got to that point. But it went first go. But the thing is that, let me also say this about Allison. Allison is really good outside. If you haven't seen the episode, we kind of talked about specs and all this stuff. Allison's like 5'6", and she has like a 6'2" arm span. It's a freak arm span. Like, it's crazy.
I can't think of anyone with that big an arm span. Well, like, just in general in the world.
Relative to their height, right?
But yeah, that's special.
Kind of wild. So what's tough for people with super long arms is they can't bend their elbows as well. Like, if you talk to anybody with long arms, it's much harder for someone with long arms to do a one arm than it is for someone that has shorter arms or has like an equal span to their height. And so that's also what's tough with Allison in board climbing. The jump snatches are a whole thing for her. It's hard for her to bend her arms like that. And so that was kind of a little bit of background too. So all is to say is that Kyra ended up smashing those boulders. Yeah, so one was 60, just steep climbing, some tensiony moves, pretty dynamic as well. The other one was 35 degrees. This one had a lot of kind of complex movement to it, and I was psyched about that because we often show off the boulder at steeper angles during these episodes, and I really wanted to show one at 35, which to some people is still very steep, but for the people, the caliber of climber that we have on these shows, like that's not very steep at all. So that one was a little more technical. Kyra did do it pretty quickly. The thing about this episode that was different about it, while I think it's I want to talk about it, is it became Allison's episode because it wasn't just about two people battling the boulders. It just wasn't that. It was Kyra who did what Kyra does, and she did it in such an impressive way. But I almost felt bad because the story arc of Allison from boulder to boulder was like you were invested, and she ended up doing such crazy beta on these boulders. I've never seen anybody else do something so different than we expected when we set the boulders. She was doing 360s and shit to get around jumping. And especially on the last one, I just could not believe she did like 4 completely different things through that climb than I expected. I just did not even see.
And she freaking did it.
I cannot believe she ended up doing some 360 toe hook to match this tiny. If you haven't seen the episode, watch it just for the sake of just seeing what a pro climber can do when they're out of their element, even on a board. I almost felt bad that this almost like Kyra did too well on it. And Allison's journey kind of overshadowed how well Kyra did. Like she smashed, but I think it was just worth saying that it was kind of it was different from the traditional episode. It was just watching a creative, skilled climber who is like not a board lord, but a really good rock climber, make the climbs their own thing and succeed through it. So I just thought that was super, super impressive. I'm definitely going to have Kyra back on. We got to have her back on to smash around again. But that one just ended up being Allison's episode.
Well, it made me think about when I saw Allison just tackling the boulder in a way that was unexpected to Kyra, unexpected to you guys from setting it, is that I gotta say, when you think of Allison Vest, you often think of extremely strong fingers. I mean, that's kind of, some of the best finger strength in the world. But then it's interesting how you can pigeonhole her into that, or you can say that thing about her, but how she climbed and how she utilized her body and finger strength, of course, unlocked some of those abilities that she was able to do. But it made me really just be impressed with her as a climber, as a total package. And I'm trying to think of, I can't remember who I was talking to. I think I was asking them about Good to Great. And the thing that they wanted to communicate was that no matter what, you have to make your mark on the field, on the boulder, or whatever the case may be. And, so if they change the 3-point line, you get better at 3-point shooting from that distance. Or if you're shorter, you have to figure out how to deal with taller defenders. And I just remember watching Allison, and it's like the boulder can't change, but she has strong fingers, she has long arms, and just the way she made her mark on the boulder and became the story arc of the thing. Just it wasn't like, oh, I give up, this isn't my strength. It was like she made it hers, and I thought it was amazing.
She really did, man. Yeah, and that one I will never forget. It was so funny because there's like my reaction when she actually did that last boulder in the crazy ass way that she was trying to do it. I just like could not believe it. I just was kind of beside myself. I was like, because Kyra tried to do some of the wacky shit that Allison was doing, and she was like, I cannot do this. And it is just because of the way Allison's built. And that's the other thing about the boulders we give them. Again, they're not just these jump snatch things. Like if we would have set something super binary where it's just pass fail, that wouldn't have been very interesting because you just can't do much with that. So I was just really happy with the result of that.
But then to give Kyra credit, this is what was interesting about watching her in competition climbing, is that Kyra can jump and snatch. She is good at that. And so sometimes you'd see her in the Olympics or something, or the team trot, whatever the case may be. And, she exhibited that style, and she made those competition climbs her own in that not overpower. I don't know. Just like, it's cool to see. That's what makes an athlete great, is they take their abilities and showcase it in a way that, you don't expect as a spectator or a route setter, which is just, good times. I freaking loved it.
But yeah, I just had to mention that because that was an insane one. So, but yeah, in more recent news, when I say recent, at recording, guys, for those listening, we dropped Board Lord 7 yesterday, which was Hamish, Noah, Sean, Houchins, McCallum. And it was about as crazy of a episode as I could have anticipated. I at one point, Ben Wheeler says in the video that was electric. And that's a great word, because it just was that.
It really was.
What did you think about it? You were there.
I absolutely loved it. It was electric. And, we all climb because we love that feeling of climbing and ascending. But, you also love this kind of sporting thing. You love seeing excellence. You love seeing people push their limit. You love seeing physicality in a way that you didn't even know was possible. And so it was one of the greatest sporting events I've witnessed, dude. It just,
I would say so too.
And just to set the stage a little bit, because we're recording this, it'll be coming out in a few weeks. So I had just interviewed Hamish MacArthur for the Testpiece podcast the day before that. And I also, since then, I did a pod with Noah and Ben Wheeler that will come out before this. So hopefully everything is congruent with what I say here. But, weeks go by, you forget what happened. So just take this, if you listen to the Wheeler pod and then this, and I contradict myself, I apologize. But
they're going to have those actuallys. I love those. People on the internet are ruthless.
I was blown away by everything about it, but I think that I also had high expectations coming in because they are different climbers, man. Hamish MacArthur has been on a freaking tear. For a year now, but really in the last 6 months, he has hit the scene, and he had just done No One Mourns the Wicked in a day. He had just done Megatron.
3 hours. He did that thing in 3 hours, dude. Like, it was not even a day.
And Noah is so Hamish has a big competition background. He was in the Olympics a year ago, and Noah is a board lord to the T. Like, honestly, dude, I remember the first episode I saw him in. I can't remember. Do you remember which episode he first appeared?
It was the first one. He's been in it 3 times, and I had some, but anyway, he was in the first one.
So I had heard of Noah, but I hadn't really seen him climb. I mean, everyone had heard of Noah. Oh, this guy has strong fingers. You're like, okay, what does that mean? And then when I watched him on that first Board Lord episode, I don't know why, man. I became like a super fan. I was just like, there's something about the way he moves. There's something about him clamping his feet. There's something about the way he moved that I was just a big fan. So all that is to say, he's a classic board finger strong guy who has now also proved himself on rock with a couple of V17s this past season. And then you guys had Sean, and Sean has done all of them, all of the TB2 Mirror Classics. His Instagram is legendary, but he doesn't really climb outside. He's young. And so on top of all of that, Sean is shorter, very muscular, maybe the most muscular climber I've ever seen.
Brick house.
And just a brick. Noah is kind of average climber, I would say, like size, kind of lanky,
he's
but
like
plenty
5'10",
muscular.
5'11", yeah.
There you go. Hamish is taller. And one thing I got to tell you about Hamish, I remember when he walked into my place to do the interview, I just looked at the guy. He is lean as can be, and then just all shoulders. Not even like all back and arms, just like literally it looks like someone just bolted these like shoulders onto him. And so just, again, physically very different, and then backgrounds very different. So I was excited and had high expectations from the beginning, but like, how did that group come to be?
Dude, so a few crazy things happened behind the scenes with this one. So it was not our original plan to have these 3 guys. Actually, the third person we had considered was Matt Foltz.
That would have been dope too.
Yeah. Well, okay. So Noah had been on, this was been his 3rd Board Lords episode. And this was only the 7th one we'd ever done. So I was hesitant to bring him on for the 3rd time. We love Noah. I want him a part of all these, but I wanted to spread it out a little more. But he had just been hanging out with Hamish for so many days since he was in Colorado, and they'd been palling around. And again, the banter and people knowing each other and being able to do that on camera, I just was like, let's just go ahead and have Noah on again, whatever. Basically what happened is there was Hamish's plans for staying in Colorado kind of changed abruptly. We were supposed to shoot this episode like 2 to 3 weeks later than we actually had to do it. He up and planned to just go back to the UK after the World Cup in Salt Lake. And we thought we were going to be shooting this after the World Cup in Salt Lake. So World Cup was that weekend, the next weekend. And so we were like, oh shit, like we've got to film this week or not at all. And so usually we take our time on the boulders. Usually we did not have the boulder set when we heard this. We did not have the 3rd person. Matt he had a scheduling conflict. I think he's also coming back from a bit of an injury he had. So I did not want to push him being on the Board Lords, because that's the last thing I'm trying to see is somebody get hurt on one of these. So we were just faced with a huge conundrum at the beginning of that week. We were like, okay, we've got to film that this week, and we've got to make both of those boulders this week, and we've got to find a 3rd person to jump in with literally the best in the world. And as easy as you would think that might be in Colorado, it's not just like, hey, Sean Rabbitoo, let me call you want to jump in on one of these. There's a lot of things that have to go into this. There's a lot of, sometimes you've got to talk to agents. Sometimes there's a lot that goes into scheduling people to be on some of these. So it just was not ideal. And I did not want it to just be Hamish and Noah. That would have still been a great episode, but I just wanted a 3rd wild card in there. So Sean came in because we were already anticipating getting Sean on an episode. We had already planned it. We already had some ideas of who we wanted, which I'll go ahead and say it. Some of the things we're going to do in the future, I think we're going to dub a sub-series. We're going to call it Board Lords Underground. We're going to bring more of these underground people that you've never heard of, like Sean used to be, right, together and just see them do some of the hardest things you've ever seen. So that's kind of how we were going to introduce Sean initially. But we were just like, you know what? He's available. And like, he's the only person that I know that could actually probably go toe to toe with these guys in this arena. And also, you know, the more we thought about it, I was like, who else deserves to do this? Like, Sean is a perfect example of what I want to happen from building this board culture. He's from Iowa. He does not go outside. The things he's doing is literally confined to his Instagram account. If you're not paying attention to boards, you don't know him. But he is absolutely just made his brand.
And he's world class at what he does.
World class. He just made his brand on this board. I'm like, who else? Just the duality of these like established professionals with this guy from Iowa who has just made a name for himself as a true board lord. I was like, this is actually perfect the way this is working out. So I call him up. I'm like, you available? He's like, actually, yeah. And we were like, all right, we're flying you in. And he was psyched. And so, yeah, it came together very abruptly. We set the boulders on the Tuesday after we found out that we had to film it on Friday of that week. And actually, shameless plug here, we just started a Patreon, and there's a whole video on us building the boulders. We called in Ben Burkhalter, who you might have seen in the episode. Ben Burkhalter was in Board Lords 1, crazy board lord. I've known him forever. He's a little brother to me. He's hilarious. And he's also an amazing setter. So we brought him in. It was me, Will, Derek, our managing director, Quinn, and Ben Burkhalter. And we just put our heads together. And in a span of a few hours, we cranked out these 2 boulders, which is not an easy thing because you have to understand these boulders have to be right. It's as important to us as setting a World Cup. You can't overcook them. You can't undercook them. You have to set them exactly right where you know it's going to be a challenge. And best case scenario, one person ends up doing one of the boulders. That's usually what I'm going for. But point being is this one was particularly difficult because of the time crunch and the fact that the size difference in these guys.
Yeah.
So Hamish is like 6 foot. Noah's 5'10", 5'11". Sean is 5'6". So it was a tough whole deal behind the scenes to do it.
He's probably square too, right? Like, because he didn't seem to have a massive.
No, I think he is square.
What's crazy is 5'6" is not that short, but he was so muscular. I kind of thought he was shorter. Like, he just didn't look. I mean, not in the best way. I mean, dude, like,
well, I think his arms, and the fact that he is square, if you look at, I think it's just an illusion, but if you have shorter arms or just like a square spec, you look shorter a lot of times. If you have longer arms, longer legs, shorter torso, even if you're short, you appear. Luckily, I think I fall into that camp, and some people, Quinn's probably going to laugh at this because they're always trying to make short jokes on me. But anyway, all that is to say is that we had a lot of challenges thrown at us for this one to come together in the way that it did.
Yeah, I think you should also highlight the fact that when you set for extremely good people, there's more chances that you totally don't see a completely big, like where it actually gets broken. Like not just like, oh, like that was cool, you figured out a toe hook, but like straight up, they skipped half the climb, because what these athletes can do, even though you guys think you can envision it, sometimes you can't.
Well, that brings me to the last wrench that was thrown at us. So the day we were filming, we were about to show these guys the boulders. We were about to get started on filming. Ben Wheeler shows up. He shows up with Noah when they got there. And so he was like, let me see the boulders. So before Noah walked in the room, we were showing Ben the climbs. And Ben identifies a potential break that we just did not see on the second boulder. So the last move on the second boulder is this massive move out to a corner jug. So originally we had an intermediate hold it's one of the worst holds on the TB2. It's a flat crimp. It's kind of got a side pull thing going on with it, but it's just a flat edge. It's plastic. And we had that there for them to use as an intermediate to kind of pop down to, and then potentially pogo for the last move. But just something there, to give, because that was a massive last move.
It is massive. People do not realize how massive that last move
No
is.
way in hell I'm ever doing that move.
It's insane. Yeah, I think sometimes what people don't realize how big something is when it's kicked back, because like it doesn't look as far, and then you realize it's like overhung and at distance. Yeah.
So Ben walks in and he's looking at the boulders like, he said, I think Hamish might be able to just from the second move in pop up left hand to that intermediate and pretty much skip this entire boulder. And I was like, really? Like, I know the dude is strong, but I had never climbed with Hamish. I had only met him briefly. And so I knew his height, but it was hard for me to think that he could, but Ben had been climbing with him a lot.
And Ben's tall too.
And yeah, Ben's a similar height. Yeah. So what happened, I wish we had filmed this because this would have been hilarious, but I like huddle Will and everybody that was involved in that first setting thing. And I was like, we got an issue. What do we do? Do we leave it? Because I wanted to leave it for Sean, because that second boulder was no doubt it was Morpho. It was just Morpho. There was some parts to the first one that were a little hard for him as far as size, but that second one, that was just straight up Morpho. It just was. And I was like, I just want to give him this because I know if with this hold, he could make it the whole distance. But we just had to take it off. We had to make that last minute decision to take it off, because you can't give those guys too much, because they'll just destroy the climb you made and just break the shit out of it. So yeah, I felt bad that I think Sean did kind of get a little boned on that second one, especially. But again, with that size range, we could not take any chances with giving those tall boys any extra things to work with. Just couldn't.
I want to come back to this whole concept of Morpho and height and boards, because let me just loop back to that, because something you said earlier that I really wanted to bring up is you were talking about, you heard it here first, the quote unquote board lords underground, which, of course the name may change, who knows, but this idea of highlighting some of the community members that maybe aren't Olympians, but they are doing things that are world class on boards. And I was wondering if you set for guys like that, do you think you'll set differently? Because Sean did not do as well as Hamish MacArthur on those two boulders. Spoiler, but some of the things Sean did blew my mind. But so I was just on Instagram and I saw some boulders Sean put up on the TB1. I don't remember what it's called, but he basically jumps and catches a hold with one arm. My comment on there was it's the El Corazon of the TB1, which I thought was very clever.
It's really funny because there's nothing like it.
Nothing like it. But dude, no, but you know why?
It's
because of Daniel Woods when he was trying to do El Corazon FA and he was like jumping and like catching that thing one arm. I don't think he actually ended up doing it like that, but just anyways. And it just was making me think how I think you could take these underground board lords that are doing like that jumping and catching thing, something with one hand it's climbing, but I don't know if anyone is doing it better than how Sean did it.
No, agreed. That's not necessarily the parts that I was talking about. Like those guys are some
I vote for that too.
Yeah. No,
one boulder like that.
Yeah, no, we definitely, we try to bake that some massive jump deal into it because it's the same reason they do that shit in the World Cup. Like there's
it's awesome, dude.
It's awesome to watch. It's exciting, but that kind of stuff I wasn't too worried about. Now that last move did end up being a little far.
No. I mean, like if you guys did a whole nother Board Lords episodes and you knew who you were setting for was like Luca, Ben Kim, Sean, I would imagine that to highlight some of their extreme abilities, you could set in like some of these ways that like he's making up sets for himself. Cause that made me think like, all right, you just did Board Lords episode with Olympian Hamish MacArthur, Noah Wheeler, double V17 this season, and then Board Lord Sean. And I was like, I could imagine Board Lord Underground. It's like you got Luca, you got Sean, and then you bring in, I don't know, like Zach Galla or something who is a Board Lord, but kind of maybe more outdoors. And it's funny, like how would they perform in a style that might be like kind of the youth who only climb on boards really, and they do crazy stuff, man. They just do stuff that blows my mind.
It's kind of a new age type of thing. I was talking with Will about it, and there's the way that they are moving on some of these holds and the coordination that they're doing. It's kind of new age. Like you see a lot of that stuff happening in regular competition, but the size of holds that they are doing these things on is a whole different type of thing. There is this new age style that is developing with the upper end on some of those coordination things. But one thing I wanted to back up and say about that is another thing that we try to do is best as we can. Size, usually we try to keep them relatively the same size. That's why I was thinking about Matt Foltz with those two guys, because Matt's more in line with them. And then in that way, we can set something. It's a little easier for us to set something because they'll all fit in the same way in the same box. And it's a little easier. With this one, this is probably the biggest height difference between the tallest and the shortest that we've had on the series. So yeah, it just happened that just even the beginning moves outside of that jump move at the end, they're just so wide.
I was surprised that Sean struggled on that first move on boulder number 2, because when I saw you do it, I think you do it in the boulder breakdown.
No, I don't.
Oh, you don't? Really?
I can't do that move. No, because you're so spread out on this undercling, and you have to kind of match it so quickly that if you don't have a lot of play in your arms, it is really, really tough. That was what was funny about that second boulder breakdown is that was the one where I was like, Quinn, you're gonna have to do this whole damn thing. You'll see me on like maybe 2 moves in the middle of it, connecting the top to bottom. That's the only thing I could do in the moment. And I was just like, this thing is fucked up for short people. It is mean.
That boulder and that last move where you go from really stretched out into side pulls, kind of like a drive by to a little crimp and then launching for it for that jug all the way. It actually had one of my favorite moments when Noah first tried that move, or maybe he had almost done it on his first go, but like the first time he really like pulled on and tried that last move, he got all bound up. He had those two side pulls, drop knee, tons of tension and control, gets onto that little crimp, but he's like a coiled spring in that drop knee, and watching him just kind of like choose in that moment to take that energy and fly versus like set up and then fly was one of the coolest. Like I love that moment. I just was like, damn, good climbing IQ.
I don't, Ben Burke kind of set that by himself. He's that good. I mean, he just nailed that set. We had tweaked it a little together, but he almost nailed that first go.
Wow.
I don't think that even in that moment, we didn't anticipate that would be how they actually climb it. We thought that they'd be able to dive through and just control that crimp and then put a foot on and jump.
Isn't that how Hamish ended up doing it though? That's how he did it on the go, but he did it the other way.
But we didn't anticipate how they would have to kind of coil up in this really odd box to at least initiate that crimp, that hold. You definitely had to get in this weird drop knee box position to begin to start to hold that thing. Then I think you could cut out of it. I don't think we realized how crazy that was going to have to be to even get in the position for the jump. But yeah, man, that was kind of a crazy sequence.
Well, what was interesting is I remember Hamish seeing Noah do it like that. And then I felt like I really saw Hamish do something that was very, I don't know if it was outdoor oriented or competition oriented, but he followed Noah's lead. He got a bound up in that drop knee, coiled spring, gets onto that crimp. And then instead of kind of launching out of it, like how Noah did, he kind of just boom out of it, which it was probably his first time trying it. So I don't want to say this was, the best he could do, but then I watched Hamish kind of undo the position, kind of almost go down and kind of swoop over, and just the patience of like controlling that spring move and then just flying. And instead of it just being like, oh, I'm coiled up, I'm going to jump as fast as I can to the jug, it was like this unleashing of the energy and this cool controlled swoop and then dunking it, just fucking dunking it.
It was incredible. It was so cool to watch.
By the way, I don't think that's on the video. I don't think the way he did it on his Sengo was not like that. So if you go and watch there,
didn't make it.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I there's a lot. I mean, there's so much footage. I honestly, we should probably just make another behind the scenes thing, and we'll probably put it on the Patreon. Yeah, but there was a few funny moments where Hamish would pull something out, and I would look over at Noah, and he'd be like, "What the fuck?" So, and it's crazy to say for Noah to say that. I think Noah is every bit as good. Frankly, if Noah could get his skin game right, and I'm not even dogging it. I told him this week because he climbs in the shop all the time. I was like, man, if you could just figure the skin thing out, you would just be said and done with these boulders. Because every one of the flash goes, he's getting to the end of it. The very first go, he got all the way to the last couple of moves of the climb. And it's same with the second one, I think.
Yeah. He had good first go. He really did.
Great first go on both of them. But I think his skin just holds him back so bad. And I hate that happens because he can just do these things. It's just his skin is so bad. He's just fighting with a damn handicap. He's got a crutch on. He just don't realize it.
Kind of made it into the video, but so he bleeds right away. And that's like, okay, but that's just Noah. Of course he's going to bleed. Then he bleeds again. I don't know if it was a different finger, just more blood. And then you can see me say this to him. He climbs again. I think it was on his first go on the second boulder, and he comes off. I'm like, Noah, you're bleeding again. He was like, no, I'm not. But it was like off of his elbow. And just the idea that someone could have a board session and they bleed from 3 different areas in the course of a couple hours. Like it's kind of his hallmark, dude. Everyone is like, dude, Noah's skin, what's he doing?
Yeah. He's once he gets that under control, you guys better watch out. That dude is going to be a whole nother animal. I I still think he's not tapped his potential. It's all because he hadn't figured his skin game out, but just wait.
So when you put this group together and you saw these boulders, who did you think was going to come out on top? And we can say all the spoilers. People have watched this. It's, this will come out late enough. Like,
I can never tell, man. And I think that's what's fun about this. All that you can really do is study how these guys move on the footage and all of the stuff that you can get. All you can do is set something where it's going to challenge them and just throw in the dice. And that's kind of how it works. If we would have done the boulders in reverse, Noah would have smashed that first one. No problem. And that's also a big part of when we're doing this, the second Board Lords, that one was kind of a gamble. We didn't really know what we were doing still with the whole thing, but we let them choose on that one, which one they wanted to do first. And it totally messed up the outcome. And so now we don't let them do that. But yeah, I thought that Noah would just destroy the second one, which I think, again, he would have had he had not been so worn down and his skin been so bad by the time he got to it. So I definitely knew that was going to happen. Thought Hamish would do really well. I knew Sean was going to have, because again, Sean is just a little shorter than me, and I was having a really hard time holding a lot of those positions. So I knew he was going to have trouble on that one. I thought Sean was my bet for doing the first one the best, because while the beginning of that one, you are a bit spread out getting into those shoulder moves. And also, I will say the only thing I thought he was going to do poorly on was that cross under to the next flap. That was kind of like one of the cruxes, because the foot situation to set up for that, you kind of have to have long legs for it. But he figured out that heel method
was so cool.
Was super cool. But once I saw that he had figured that out, I was like, this is his boulder, because the end of that boulder is more, I would say, small box.
Yeah. Just kind of smashing between those holds.
Yeah, you just can't ever tell, dude. That's what's exciting for me, is you just have to kind of set the variables where they need to be. And then that's what's exciting about documenting it, is you just don't know how it's going to go.
That's sports, dude. Yeah.
That's sports. And one thing I was telling you yesterday, if you guys watch some of these episodes, and you'll watch when some of these, especially on 6 and 7, when a boulder gets done, I'm losing my shit in the background. But I don't think people realize why I'm losing my shit. It's not because somebody did the boulder and that the person did the boulder. That's part of it. I'm thinking about all of the stuff that went into this episode for that single moment to happen on camera. That's why I'm freaking out, because I'm thinking we've done all this shit to lead right up to these guys doing what they can do on these climbs. And so when they do something, I'm like, fuck yes, we got one. Like, cause that's the best you can ask for. You don't want to shut them down. You really want to at least get one send. That's not to put any pressure on any future board lords who are listening to this. If we do everything right, all they need to do is show up and do what they do. But again, that's why I'm freaking out in the background, because I'm thinking about all the shit that it took for that to happen. So that's also a little behind the scenes, but
that's why if you look at World Cups, you'll see the most nervous people are the route setters sitting there watching.
Exactly.
Stressing out, dude.
Totally get it. Yeah. But the last thing I want to say about this, which we should definitely point out, is the send at the very end that Hamish did. The way that happened, I don't think we had to edit it in a certain way, but in real time, what happened was Hamish does the second boulder. We all freak out. It's great.
People are tired.
Yeah, man.
It's been 3-4 hours or something.
Both of those boulders, I don't give it to anyone under 5'9". That second boulder we gave them is 14. Hamish said 13, but he's 6 foot. I'm telling you that is 14. The first boulder, Sean and Noah were like, it's solid or hard 14. Hamish was like, this thing's harder than 14. And anyway, so Hamish does the second boulder eventually. We all freak out. Sean tries it a little bit more. Hamish goes directly when they decide, hey, we're going to play on the first boulder a little bit more. Hamish is sitting by the fan. He was like, what's the name of this boulder? And we said, it's called How Soon Is Now, which is a Smith song that I had been blasting for the week. It was just, I freaking love that song. It's really good. It's like an epic song. And we just thought it was a great name because it was we had to speed set these things. We're like, How Soon Is Now just was relevant. We were like, let's make it that. And he was like, oh yeah, put that song on. They should put that song on. And so I blast the song, and dude was like, yeah, I saw it in his face. He just locked in. That's all he needed. He needed the vibe. And he just immediately takes his shirt off, walks directly to, it's kind of cut, that in between is cut out of the episode, but it was exactly like that. He just takes his shirt off. I don't think anybody behind us was initially really even paying attention that he was going to pull on for another go. And I was just behind the camera. I'm like, okay, he's doing it. Dude just locked the fuck in. And when he hit that last hold, it was crazy. Like it was electric. We lost it. I just couldn't. And that's why when he did that, I was like, oh shit, this is gonna be the coolest shit we've ever filmed. What in the hell just happened? It was so insane. I just, that moment was kind of crazy. It looks crazy on video, but it just being there was just insane.
He ran out of the building too. He
ran into the main, the shop.
How did he even know that you could even run through that door?
I don't know that he did know. He just ran through it. He just ran through the back door.
What a character, dude.
Dude, it was so good. I just couldn't believe Drew putting the song on and how he just locked in. And even on the beat, right? The song kind of leads up, and then it has like a bit of an epic part where it drops, and he pulls on right during it. It was just like I was watching a movie. It just really played out as best as I could have hoped.
Honestly, it was perfect. And I had just done a podcast with Hamish the day before, and we had been talking about all the, I don't know, mental side of performing your best. And I'm sitting there watching him, and just how he acted and how he flipped that switch. It just really got me, man. There was just something about watching him go into this execution mode. And then what was wild too, well, you showed this in the video, he got close earlier on.
So close.
And that actually looked like a really good attempt. And then he does the second boulder. It's late, it's tired. And then he just locks in. And when we were watching him on that attempt where he actually does the first boulder, he like looked like he was going to fall, man. Like, I don't know about you, but I kind of thought he was coming off right before that kind of third or second to last move. Looks tired. And then when he gets into that drop knee, kind of drop the ish thing that they were doing, grabs that last hold and just yells out, and just, it was just sheer, just, I don't know, man. Sports,
primal.
Electric. It was fucking primal. I like that.
And you know what? Here's another little background information. Hamish was actually late that day. You know why he was late that day? Because dude was in Bocan climbing on Things Done Change, this like 8B thing. It used to be 12, but it's like the hardest 12 on the planet.
Heinous 12. It's not a V12.
It's
that
not a 12.
Fucking tiny.
Some people are like, man, that thing's like 14. But he had gone to Boulder Canyon and was climbing on that thing right before.
He's late as fuck. Yeah.
Yeah, he was late. Yeah. And so people don't realize that. It's like, yeah, you saw the board lords, but dude was just outside climbing on a hard ass boulder, and he did it, by the way, of course. But yeah, so I don't know, man. And what this kind of can carry on to the next topic, maybe, but we published it in the app because we usually wait. We publish them in the app the day that we drop the video, and he went in there and he gave it 8C.
Oh, damn, dude.
The Boulder V15. Now, this is going to call... I know that there's going to be comments. There's probably a little conversation. I was like, no, he gave it V15. And even when Sean and those guys said it was 14, you know what? I think that's awesome. Wow. Because the reality of it is that probably is V15. So first of all, V15's got to start somewhere. It's all a spectrum, right? Like it's got to start somewhere. If it's hard 14, what's the difference in hard 14 and easy 15?
It's whoever says it is. Yeah.
Exactly. It's all got to start somewhere. And who the fuck is going to tell Hamish MacArthur that ain't 8C? You know, like I think he knows what 8C at this point. I think he knows it when he sees it. And on top of that, he did No One Mourns the Wicked in about the same time frame, which is a V17. So I just think that's awesome because usually that's not the way that it goes. Usually when this shit, no matter what the battle is like on 8B. These boards, people are like, hey, I don't know, man, 8A plus, you know, they'll fight their ass off and then they'll sit over there on their phone and then be like, oh no, it felt kind of like soft AB or whatever. Yeah, it's not. I really applaud him for not having an ego about it and just saying what he thought it was. So we classicked it because a lot of the Board Lords climbs, like we put so much time and energy into it, like they're damn sure classics. It's just tough to grade them because we can't do all of them. So we kind of have to go by what the Ascensionists say. And when he gave it 8C, we were like, you know what? 8C classic. It's a first V15 classic on the board.
Dude, that's a big deal. That's a big fucking deal. I love the story behind that too, that's how it went down. And I don't know, man, that makes me really happy. That's a step in history to say V15 on the board.
It's a step. And frankly, you know, like we talked about it, I think there's tons of them, but people are, whether it's ego or ignorance, it just doesn't ever get called what we think it's going to be. And Hamish just was like, that's 8C.
What's funny is like the way our community works, climbing as a whole is, I know what you're saying. Where you're like, there's already a ton of them, but there's not, because if we don't say it is, then it isn't. And so you can go Yosemite and there's the infamous grade of 5.9 plus, and you'll get on this. You're like, are you sure you don't mean 5.11 minus? Because this is hard, but people didn't give it 5.10. It was a inappropriate grade to offer.
Same thing with horse pins. Like you go there and you're like, what the fuck is this V3?
So, you know? But the thing that's funny is like, we can all talk about how, oh, that's actually whatever grade, but it kind of never does change, dude. Like it kind of is those grades. So that it's a big deal to say there's now 8C, there's now a V15 on the board. And when I was thinking about who I thought was going to do the boulders first or fastest, wherever you want to say for how you might compare each other in a Board Lords episode, I actually didn't think Hamish was going to end up doing as well as he did. And then I feel like an idiot in hindsight because the guy is fucking on one. He's fucking on one. He just did V17 in a couple of hours. Like this is his last 6 months has been potentially the most impressive 6 months in climbing. I mean, just putting it out there. It could have been. That's a reasonable thing to say.
It totally has. It was what Will and I were talking about. Like his trip to Colorado was fucking historic. Like not just what he did outside, but he sealed it with this episode that was documented and was just unbelievable. And yeah, man, like it is kind of historic. And I'm psyched that we were a little part of that.
It's yeah, I can't believe he did Things Done Change. So again, I had done a podcast with him the day before. I was like, what are you up to after this? What are you doing? He's like, oh, might go to the gym, climb a bit. I was like, dude, Board Lords is tomorrow. Don't you want to rest? He's like, I don't know. And then he goes up to Bocan and is late. And by the way, Michael, I brought my shoes and chalk and I was secretly hoping that you guys were going to put me in. I really wanted to, although after seeing the boulders, it's so hard to describe how hard these boulders are, because this is why I kind of started out the pod by asking about, well, I see you and Quinn doing moves. And it's like, yeah, I did that move on my 12th try, completely fresh with every little, micro adjustment perfect because I came from that move off the ground. And then putting them together, it's just mind blowing how the physicality that we saw. But shouldn't have counted out Hamish MacArthur, despite the fact he had just gone up and climbed outdoors, climbed the day before. But then even the beginning, when I watched Sean, I thought when he first pulled on to the first boulder and he messes up the sequence or is trying to figure out, and then dinos into like an iron cross and then keeps going. It was incredible, dude. It really, it hurt my shoulder watching it. And so I was glad that I was not part of the Board Lords episode because I would have hurt myself. But I actually was like, oh, these guys, Hamish and Noah, don't realize what they're getting into. This guy lives and breathes this. Like, this is his domain. And although it didn't come out that way as far as the results, I still think if you were there and saw the kind of strength and ability Sean exhibited, I came away thinking things done changed. But with the youth on boards, that's what changed, man.
Oh, dude. I mean, yeah, when he does that move, you can hear me in the background of the video and be like, son of a bit, like, what the fuck? Yeah. You're right. I mean, that's what I wanted to show with this episode was you can bring in the best in the world with someone who is basically the best in the world in this realm that only a fraction of the climbing community is really paying attention to. And he's going to keep up, and he damn sure did. Like, Sean just kept up with those dudes. And it really goes to show you, not to take any away from Sean, but there's a lot of Seans out there. And I'm trying to document all those guys. But Sean's got a good future ahead of him. If he decides he wants to go rock climbing and spend some time doing that, I think that we're going to see him doing some crazy shit.
Quick break to tell you about today's sponsor. And just a reminder, I only partner with companies that are run by climbers. Today's partner is Mad Rock Climbing. Mad Rock is always at the cutting edge of climbing. They're known for innovation, and that's because they're climbers who keep pushing the limits of what is possible in gear technology. Like the drones. Everyone knows you have to have a pair of drones in your quiver because sometimes that heel makes it almost feel like cheating. Almost. If you want to hear more about the latest innovations going on there and what's coming next, be sure to check out episode number 147 with their CEO, Kenny Suh. It's a total banger. The other thing that drives Mad Rock is an ethos that climbing is for everybody. And that means making the best gear affordable. That's why Mad Rock has promised to keep their prices the same through at least the summer, despite the turmoil that tariffs have brought to the industry. They're not going to lower quality, reduce staff for their pay, or cut corners in any way. They're just going to take the hit so you don't have to. Like their founder Young Chu said, making good gear isn't hard. Making it affordable, that's the challenge. Go check them out now at madrock.com. Okay, back to the pod. Well, I want to dig into that a bit because although we're talking about boards and we can always talk about boards, we do still go outside and climbing is climbing, and I love boards because it's climbing. I love comp problems because it's climbing. I love outdoors because it's climbing. And I was just looking at the way Sean climbed, and I'm going to say negative things, but then I'm going to say positive things too, is that I was just like, dude, this guy is just kind of flipping around between boulders. He has body tension, but it was a very different way to climb than Hamish. And historically, it's not what I would equate with that kind of style that does well on real rock. And I say this because I'm kind of like that. I often flick between holds and just kind of like make it work. And, watching the best example was him just dynoing to decent holds, but really just overpowering them on a kind of iron cross feet cutting. Mm-hmm. And then I was like thinking to myself, yeah, okay, so Sean exhibits excellent board style because he climbs on board so well and he's world class at that. And then I was like, okay, well, how does that translate to outdoors? And you have an example of Noah who kind of made his name in boards and then went out and did V17. And then I was thinking to myself, well, after watching him on that TB1 move where he jumps and latches a crimp, and I called it that El Corazon. I'll try to link in the show notes if I can remember. I thought to myself, dude, this guy is going to go outdoors, maybe Rocklands. And I say El Corazon because it's not a bad example of he could jump and latch something, and it could be the world's first V18 because it just requires strength, technique, dynamic precision, and in a way that takes a lifetime to build. And it's just an interesting concept where he might be unlocking something, or boards and the board lords of this generation might unlock something outdoors that just we really couldn't even imagine. It's like, dude, you can't dino 6 feet to a little crimp. It's like, yes, you can. Yes, you can.
I mean, well, think of Shaolin and think of floating in Japan. Those are the kind of things. I mean, those are upper end, and I think the guys that are doing them they're pretty good at that board thing.
I was really impressed when Flo went to. I'm probably butchering his name. Flo went and did floating, and I know him from the Moonboard, and then he also flashed a mandala of V14 in very board style, and he did both quickly. Well, he flashed one. It makes me think, yeah, harder climbs are possible. Like
exactly. If you think about floating, right? Is it
a campus? It might be a campus.
I think it's a campus move, but if you just pull those moves apart a little bit, really it's really close is the point. I think that you're right, that some of this new age style that these guys are doing, it's not just jumping, but it's just the sheer management of what they're grabbing when flying high speed through midair. And then in a lot of situations, they're double clutching through some of this stuff. It's kind of new age. It's not quite exactly the type of shit you see in World Cups. It's almost harder as far as the sheer strength involved. And I agree with you. I think that could be the next V18 situation.
I'm going to argue and say it's in some ways it is new age, but I almost want to call it old school in that the double clutching is not old school. But if you think about like floating or this idea of going from little holds very far to little holds, and this ability to be dynamic, and then there's a huge technical component of like, where does your body swing go to? How you said something like, how do you manage that? And that idea of like floating or jumping from little holds to little holds on a steep climb. There's a technique that is new school, but I also kind of love that you can feel it come out of the old school of like small holds far apart.
Yeah. Well, I think the new school part of it is blending some of that old school stuff, those old school situations where it is just far apart moves on hard holds with sort of double clutching and swinging through on those things. Like that's a little different. And you know what's crazy to me? I was just thinking about this, and I know at some point we were supposed to talk about the Moonboard a little bit in some of those videos, but when I was thinking about the Moonboard, I was like, the Moonboard is super effective, I think, for a specific grade range and a specific style, especially what we're kind of talking about with big moves between small holds. And then when you go past that, you really are faced with a lot of lower body complexity where just doing that for the majority of the time isn't going to cut it. So you have to learn to be super, complex, and you have to understand subtleties and body position and all of that. But now it's almost like on the other side of that, we're now going back to the hardest version of what the Moonboard is. And that is like the future again. So it's almost like goes in and out.
That's awesome.
Who knows where the hell it's going? But it's crazy seeing these guys pushing that. And I think Sean, the more he goes outside, the more he learns a little some of that dimension and subtlety and body position that just isn't on a 2D surface. Yeah, it's just going to take him a second, but he's going to be blowing shit up, man.
Okay, you set up a good transition of topics into the Moonboard, because it's just that Board Lords episode number 7 was just It was amazing, man. Like, it was just great. And so I know we lingered on it for a while, but you can see how it's a portal into these different athletes, their different styles, the different ways that they excel. I mean, they all climbed it very differently too. And watching Hamish just embrace those drop knees and just that tension that he brought in his lower body. And yeah, I don't know. I don't mind that we lingered on all this for too long. And this will be a transition into the Moonboard, but something that I want to close a loop on is just a really simple question that is a massive portal into exploring it, though, is, are boards fundamentally morpho? But i.e., is it better to be tall on boards? Does it favor tall people or not?
On some boards.
Is kick panel a factor?
Yeah, it is a factor. If you think about it, I mean, it's easy to see it, but if you've got a kickboard, that the kickboard is one way in which you can say, yes, some boards are morpho. The other side of it is the setting component and the variables in which the board has or doesn't have to create the climbs that it produces. So the kick panel, for one, yeah, I mean, if you have a kickboard and you're a taller person, you can milk the shit out of a kickboard a lot longer than someone who's shorter. The longer you're on that kickboard, you're not on the effective angle of the board. A lot of people don't think about that or realize that, but say you're on a Moonboard that's a 40-degree angle, the longer you're staying on that kickboard, you're actually climbing at like a 37 to a 39 degree. You're not climbing at 40 degrees. But as soon as you get on the 40 degree off the kick panel, you're at 40 degrees. So if you're a 6'3" guy and you're literally holding on to a hold and you're on the kick panel and you go half the distance or more of the board without coming off that kick panel, yeah, you're climbing at 37 degrees and the shorter 5'6" person is climbing at 40 degrees a lot sooner than you have to. So a kickboard is part of it for sure. I don't think boards are inherently morpho if they have foot options and people they take the time to create complex sequences on those feet that aren't on the kickboard instead of just jumping a mile. Because yeah, if you've got long ass arms and you're just jumping a mile, that's going to be easier for you than someone who doesn't. And I don't want to say that it's the Moonboard's fault, but I think it's the Moonboard's fault. But that's okay. That's okay.
Well, it's also because they're all on, right? Like the kilter board, they light up, right? So I think Moonboard
gives you freedom there.
It gives you free. And even though I'm not super tall, I have long arms. And so I probably am more like, 6 foot or 6'1" reach. And so I would look at the problems as I'm scrolling through to do the benchmarks. I know I can reach that hold from the kick. And so that's basically how I would do flashes or whatever. I'd be like, oh, I know how far I can reach. You get ingrained in your head. And I also think that one of the issues is that because in general, currently the holds are pretty good on boards, at least compared to outside in those same grade ranges, when you get really into the upper end. And so typically if you're shorter, you also are lighter and you do better on small holds. So I feel like there's kind of a blend there where not only can you not reach the kick panel if you are on the shorter side, but you also don't necessarily get the advantages where you can use an intermediate or you can really bear down on something that larger climbers don't. So just putting it out there.
No, and for sure. And the reason I blame it on the Moonboard is because the Moonboard is locked in position. So you can't make it easier or harder. So that's maybe beside the point, but it's locked in position as a kickboard. Yes, taller people can milk the kickboard. Quantity wise, it doesn't have that many holds. I think at max a Moonboard can have 198 holds on it just because that's how many holds are in that grid. And
I think it's actually just 98. I just counted it the other day.
It's 198.
It's 198. Okay, yeah. I'm not good at counting. It's all right.
So maybe I'm wrong. Okay, y'all come in the comments. Who's right. Put the poll up.
No, it makes sense. 98 sounds too few, man. Now that I think about it, that's like not that many holds. Yeah, go on.
Well, so it's 198 because it's the grid system. And in Moon, they don't utilize the in-betweens of that grid. So I think at the most, it's 198. Some of the sets have less. But anyway, as far as comparing that to the modern boards, that's not that many holds. So that's also a part of it. Is the reason I think a lot of people are jumping around on these boards was simply because you didn't have dedicated feet to really add the challenge. You have relatively big feet that you're going off of. You don't have a high quantity of holds, so you don't have a lot of options, in place to do other things. So inevitably it leads you to jumping a lot and doing bigger moves. So yeah, in that way, I think it can be Morpho. Some can be Morpho for sure.
First thing I want to just point out, like, because I went down, I feel like it's an interesting conversation, but I also wanted to highlight that although we talked about some of these climbs being Morpho on the latest Board Lords episode, and Sean was on the shorter side compared to the other people he was climbing with, Sean did not say anything about things being Morpho. He did not say anything or have any complaints. He was just crushing and figuring out things his own way. That I just want to make sure we highlight. Not one word was spoken about.
I really
Morpho.
appreciated that from him. I did. You're exactly right. He didn't say a damn thing. He had a smile on his face the entire time and was just trying regardless.
And figuring shit out too.
Yeah. Now, I will say there were some comments that made me believe that he did a little of it outside of what we were doing. Ben Kim, I think, made the comment of on the Instagram post, he was like, I hope these boulders aren't Morpho, almost acting like he knew that some of them already were. So I don't know if Sean told him that in the background, but and my response to that was, either way, true lords don't bitch about it, which is true. Like, and Sean didn't in the moment. Like he was just happy to be there, and that made me feel good.
And also, I'm not so sure that in the long run, he couldn't have figured out beta that worked just fine for him on all those different boulders. Maybe that first move on the second boulder was kind of tricky for him, but he found good beta, dude.
Sean will do that boulder. Not worried about it. Like, he will do that boulder. It's just going to be a little tough for him, but that's okay. Like, he will do that boulder. I'm sure of it. And so it's not Morpho in the sense that it's just totally blocking him out of doing the thing. He will do that boulder. I'm positive.
Okay, yeah. I just wanted to highlight, because I feel like we talked a bunch about Morpho. I just want to be very clear that there was no complaints, and it's open for debate. I always think like all that Morpho stuff is open for debate too, because if he was a different size, he wouldn't have some of the things that are his superpower. So maybe he would have struggled on some other move. I don't know. Anyways, let's not go down that rabbit hole just forever. So when we're talking about kick panels potentially changing the way a climb works. And the thing I'm wondering about is, like, even when climbs don't have a foothold on the kick panel, whether that's because you're on the kilter and it's just not lit up, or you're on the TB2 and there's no footholds on the foot panel, or some other variation on whatever board, sometimes I like really choose to like stand on the blank foot panel, and it really can change the boulder. And also, I was just thinking, like, this goes into like the broader topic of what is an ethical, or what the rules are around boards, because at my gym there's these boards that are on hinges or adjustable. You can like step in that seam where it goes from vert to steep. And I'm always like, dude, it's not a jug foot, but
yeah, it's a pretty big foot.
It's not bad. I'm always like tempted to do it and then don't do it, or I do it on an easier climb because I don't care. And just like, any thoughts around, actually, yeah, I'll even open that up in general. Like, what is ethical or appropriate, or good ethics on or good style, I guess I should say, on board climbs?
Yeah. Well, this one's tricky because you're right. The TB2 doesn't have holds on the kickboard. And the other thing that you have to think about is some of these adjustable boards do not have a panel under there. It's just like free space. On top of that, a lot of people, because you don't need the kick panel, there's no holds on it. People who put these in their garage, they just don't even have one. Like, it just literally starts at the angle. So it's definitely a gray area. It's something that, being that we don't make the walls, it's a tough one to police. and we don't police it. First of all, I think our stance on it, and this is something we've done since the beginning, which the second boulder on Board Lords is totally contradicting this, because those guys were milking that. They were posted up.
Have to have it.
You had to have it. But I would just say give us some grace, because we did have to set those so fast. It's not something, and that's something I usually am good about making sure we don't do. But I would say for the most part, the boulders we set in classic in-house at tension, we really try not to use that kicker at all. If you flag on it, whatever, that's fine. But we really try not to make boulders that have to utilize a kicker, simply because there's just a lot of variation in the walls that are out there. And some people can post up on it and some people can't. So all of us tend to shy away, or try our best to shy away from really using that thing at all. Now, I will say there are some boulders where I think Vapor King is one of these. That was on the second Board Lord, is when I set on the spray layout. And that first move, you did have to really flag and almost post up on the kicker. But that's one where I'm almost positive if you had a negative space there and your foot didn't just hit the ground, like if you had one of those boards where it's just floating and there's no kicker, it would almost be even better, because then you can really post up on the singular foot that you can, and get your body over it and not have this thing in your way. I think you only post up on it because it's in your way. So anyway, all of that is to say it's a gray area. We don't police people saying, oh, you can't do that and all of that, because there are a lot of climbs in the database where people are just milking a kickboard. But we just really try our best not to just kind of act like it's not there. If we kind of smear on it a little bit, that's fine, whatever. It's just kind of a gray area. So
I'm going to urge you guys at Tension and Kilter and Moonboard. Actually, I think with Kilter and Moonboard, maybe it's more explicit to decide like what is appropriate, just because I can think of a million reasons why to make kind of kickboards optional, make it fit in places that it wouldn't, because kickboards add a lot of vertical height, which makes it difficult in certain height constrained places. But I want to take ambiguity out of it. I got into, so one thing I definitely know is that the sides of the boards, you cannot toe hook them or heel hook them. Let's be clear about that. They're not. So this one time I was working this Moonboard problem, and it was a big move where I had to generate off of just a right foot. So it was like a left hand, put a right foot on, some kind of right hand. I had to like get my weight over that right foot and then launch. And I just like couldn't do it. And so then I put my left toe in a bolt hole, like a screwed in place, and like use that to just get the tiniest little bit of momentum over to the right to then be able to get way on my right to jump. And it worked, dude. And then there's, using like bolt holes for your thumb when you're on the hold. Like, and I'm just kind of curious. Yeah. What, any
I've
ethics
got opinions
there?
on that for sure.
Let's hear them. Yeah.
But I wouldn't say this is anybody's official stance. I mean, so here's the thing. When I'm on a spray wall, I call people out for putting their thumbs in bolt holes.
Interesting. Really?
Yeah. Huh. Especially ours. You go to any spray wall or whatever, they've got their own rules. A lot of people don't let you heel hook. A lot of people. I just think that if it's part of putting the hold on the wall, consider it off limits.
Interesting. If
you could just get away with gluing these holds on the wall, it just act like it's not that. You see what I'm saying? Like if it is part of affixing it to the wall, then disregard it as being part of what you grab on the hold. And if you want to use it, fine, but you're only cheating yourself. That's the thing I always say. We're sitting here training and doing all this stuff because there's no fucking bolt holes on the rocks.
I totally disagree, and I love this because
let's debate.
I feel like I know where you're coming from, and I had an Instagram reel where I said this, and people just basically were like, "You're an idiot, Josh."
I think it's a big debate. I think
it's an interesting debate.
Yeah.
So here's my argument is that you said that thing, you're only cheating yourself. And that's what I hear all the time. Like, I'm training for X, or I'm training for outdoors. So like, let's make it as hard as you can. And what I said is that when you go outdoors, there is no rules. There is no, like, you can use this thumb catch that you found. The only rule is you can't make a thumb catch.
You can't glue one on.
No gluing, no chipping.
Some people do, but
let's
not talk about that.
We can point out why Things Done Changed in Bocan. It's called Things Done Changed. Anyways, so I think that even if you're just in the mind of training for outdoor climbing, the way you should utilize indoor climbing is to look for any iota of gain you can, in the sense of using that little bolt hole for your toe, or using your thumb in the bolt hole. Now I can make the other argument where it's like, that's an unnatural position that you don't have on real rock typically. So you're kind of training your hand in a way that isn't conducive to you excelling outdoors. But I guess if I was trying to teach my kids or teach youth, I would tell them to use everything they can, because I think that vision is good outside, where, maybe you're now trying to climb the world's first V19 and you like come up with some toe scum on a pebble that's like way over to your left, and just like, it doesn't look like a normal hold, but when you develop that intuition to use every little thing available. So yeah, that's my pushback. And I needed it. Damn it, Michael. I needed it to send.
No, yeah, totally. That makes sense. And also, like, it's nice on the tension board because we have the light caps over the where the bolt hole would be. But we do have a lot of screw holes that, in some of the holds, your thumb just naturally is in the place where that is. And so I don't know that it's doing that much. It's not like I would tell anybody, like, get your thumb off that thing. Don't you touch that screw hole. But on the bolt hole is a real one, because, like, I understand the aspect of utilizing every single thing you have, but it's not the same outside. This thing is there because, like, if we could glue the holds to the wall and not have that hole in the middle of the hole, I think we'd do it. I just don't think that, when people are designing and shaping holds, they're not trying to put a massive hole in the middle of it for you to use. Like, maybe some of them do, but I don't know. It's to each his own.
But Michael, this whole podcast and boards are about them being potentially end unto themselves. So they exist in this world, in this way. And yeah, I can imagine. I know what you're saying though, where we're limited by like our ability to attach things. And so in the future, you're probably going to see like just a fundamental difference for how holds are put on walls. And, there's even like, even the fact that they jut out from the wall is weird, like that. So that's my,
got something there. So for our holds at Bent, none of the macros have bolt holes. They're all screw on. And frankly, most of our holds are screw on. The poly we've got bolt holes on them, but we also have some screw holes on them. But the macros, we don't put bolt holes in them at all, and we do flangeless, so there's not even an edge profile around them, so that we actually try our best to minimize. It does a few things, but it minimizes what you can do outside of what we designed it for and how we designed it to be. So I don't know.
I like that. Yeah.
Do what you want to on a board that has bolt hold. I don't care. If you're going to train, the bolt hole, in my opinion, is only going to train you to expect bolt holes to save you. They're not going to save you outside unless you have something that is kind of happens to be a pocket in a
very rare
right for the bolt. So anyway, everybody can think what they want to think. That's my opinion.
All right. All right. I just like pushing back, and it's because I like bolt holes, and maybe that's why
I also like giving my friends shit when they're on the wall, and I'm like, because I just remember this time where me and Roland were climbing on the beast, Roland Chin, Tristan Chin's brother. We had this massive hold, and he puts his thumb in, and I'm like, get your fucking hand out of that thing, and he like literally just pops off and laughs.
It changes everything on those underclings, especially like when you can get your thumb in the bowl. Okay. I mean,
there's no right or wrong. Do what you want to do. I don't.
Well, I don't know, man. I think I don't want to say there's no right or wrong, but when we're talking about a new space and a new area that's developing, the community seems to settle on what's right and wrong. So like, why can't you tow hook around the corner of a board that's like adjustable and freestanding? And I mean, I can think of a bunch of reasons, but you also could imagine that perhaps the first maker of boards had said, no, actually you should tow hook around the corner, and we're all going to do that forever. So I think it's fun to have these discussions about ethics and styles where, like, in sport climbing, we put bolts up, which is weird compared to traditional climbing, except for now you can climb things that don't have natural protection. But it's like, why is it okay to clip the first bolt from the ground and have that clip for safety and not the second bolt? And you can say it's for safety. It's like, let me tell you, second bolts can be fucking scary, and third bolts.
Sure.
So I think it's worth...
And the fourth one.
Yeah, like I think it's worth discussing because it
totally is. I think you're right. You said something important about the side of a board. Well, my answer to that is because you can't light it up, which is totally a joke. I mean, yeah, I think, well, we're creeping in a space where that's the part of it. You know, the quantum board, they've got holds on the panel, but again, I don't know what the rules are for that. That's why that's kind of tricky in my opinion, because you're talking about a totally 90-degree angle, and you put holds on the side there that some can light up. And it's like, well, where's the gray area when someone actually is just kind of using the hold as opposed to the really flat angle that's even better? You know, it's all worth talking about for sure as this all progresses. But
okay, Michael, we got to talk about the Moonboard. The last two videos that Moon Climbing came out with were both bangers, and I especially liked the one that was kind of, I think I want to say it was called like, is this the world's hardest climbing board or something? And it was kind of like the OG Moonboard. This is 2010. This is pre-LEDs, pre-app. And you said that you had one of these or you were at a gym with one of these. Just can you set the stage of what made it so different from, well, kind of the 2016 board, which is what the next video is about, that I would say most people, when they think of standardized LED boards, that was kind of the first instantiation that everyone thinks of.
Well, first off, hats off to the videos they've been putting out. I think Wedge has been doing those, and I am weird about YouTube. I don't go too far down the rabbit hole, but Wedge is one of the channels that I think does it really well. They're just beautiful, so cinematic, beautiful. The color grading is just off the charts. Those guys are so good. Anyway, the 2010, you know, what's crazy to me is that I actually thought that we had a Moonboard in our Birmingham gym before 2010. I swore that thing came out in 2007 or something, because our gym started in 2009. And I'm pretty positive we had one right when we built the gym, but whatever. Anyway, so
just old. You can't remember things that long ago.
I guess
this
so.
is what happens.
I guess so. But anyway, the 2010, when it first came out, the holds were not yellow. The small, what I call the nugget category holds, they were not yellow. They were either red or green. And I believe there was one official 2010 set at first, and that's the one they put up on the video.
Which was yellow hold. Those were yellow though.
Those were yellow, but when they first came out, they eventually changed them to yellow. When they first came out, they were red or green.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And the reason I know is because, and I don't know which one came first. I don't know if you got to pick or what. I actually can't remember. But the reason we had two sets of them is because they're polyester resin. And while I actually really love polyester resin, I like it more than polyurethane. It feels more like rock to me. And it also holds temperature better, I think. It's kind of cool to the touch. They're really fragile. So if you drop them, if you drive a set screw in a little too hard, or if you drive the bolt in a little too much, they'll crack. So we ended up having a couple of sets of them. But anyway, we set them up, and yeah, that was the first set that I was introduced to on the Moonboard, where it was just that nugget category. There were no black and white ones at first. And that's the one I fell in love with.
There wasn't even that many holds. I think they said there's only 40 of them. That's nothing. That's why, by the way, after having watched that, and then I earlier made the mistake of saying there was 98 holds on it. And you're like, no, dude, there's like 198. And that's what made me realize I was wrong, because when I watched the video and saw that they only had 40 holds on, and how bare it looked, just bare. And I thought it was interesting how they talked a little bit about just how those holds got created, because they're, I don't know, nasty is the term I've heard a lot, or tweaky or awkward. And they said it came from the schoolroom holds, or were inspired by them. It was just something I was interested to hear your take on, where some people are like, oh yeah, it prepares you for outdoors because it's kind of unequal loading, versus some people, well, some people just get hurt. And, I would say that when I grab them, and we're talking about specifically the yellow holds, they're a little awkward, and they're very different from a classic Technic flat edge where you're just like, ooh, like that's comfy. And yeah, what do you think about, like, did you like those holds back in the day? Were they, and just like as things have evolved and changed, do you think we should get away from that, or you think they have a place on maybe as a training style?
Yeah. Well, first, before I dive into this too far, I want to say that, and I can't overstate this enough, how much we owe Ben for starting this whole thing that we're talking about. Whether he meant it to develop into whatever it is now, I don't know, but we owe him a lot, because we wouldn't be talking about this stuff if he wouldn't have just had this idea of standardizing this thing that made those guys strong in Sheffield. But I was obsessed with it. I hope he listens to this, and it's actually funny because I just now posted, I told you about back in the day, I was so involved with the pre-app Moon culture that he ended up emailing me and wanted photos of our board, because we did have one of the first boards. It was at First Avenue Rocks, Birmingham, Alabama. Joe Ortega and Adam Henry opened that. Adam Henry is like one of the primary developers in the Horsemen's area and whatnot. They were just on top of the training thing, and they were like, we're getting one of these. So anyway, he hit me up because I was very active on the internet. It was on the internet. It wasn't in an app. I was posting videos. I was posting boulders, and Ben emailed me and it was like, hey, love what you're doing. Would you mind getting some photos of y'all's board? It's a beautiful board for Gripped magazine, because it was just shortly after the board was kind of taking off, and Gripped and the Canadian magazine was doing an article, and I sent him all these photos. And so I was in there, and then he put me on the homepage. I was this big homepage image of me on the Moonboard. Oh. So anyway, I just want to say I was obsessed with it from the get-go, and thanks for everything you did, Ben.
Changed your life, dude. Look at you now. Like, seriously.
Look at me now.
Well, no, dude.
It has kind of gone full circle. It's people just think Will England. I'm part of this thing too.
Well, could you imagine telling Ben Moon 15 years ago or whenever it was, hey, there's going to be a podcast that's devoted to like board climbing culture, and there's going to be a board lords. There's going to be YouTubes with
and I'm going to be running marketing for a company that's a competitor.
Yeah.
But I don't know. But anyway, I really want to say, like, I really appreciate what Ben has done for this growing subculture. Still doing it. So anyway, you asked me about those holds. The way I like to put it with boards, I think there's two categories that holds can fall into when they're on a spray wall or a board, a standardized board, and it's general or specific. And they both have a place. You asked if these types of holds have a place. The Moonboard, to me, all those holds specifically, the nugget holds, I like to call them, the category. That's the category I like to call them, because you end up like pulling out on a lot of them. They are almost entirely specific. And what I mean by specific is, for example, your index and middle finger is doing something different than the back half of your hand or something like that. If you think about the TB1, almost all of those holds are general. Mm-hmm. So the surface that you're grabbing is the same across the entire thing. All of your hands are doing the exact same thing. The edge profile is exactly the same all the way across it. That is very general. And that's the type of edges that you tend to train on, right? The holds on hang boards are usually very general. If you think about a campus board, those are general holds. Specific is on the other side, where you've got all these weird things that you probably will come across outside. That is what you mostly come across outside. It's fairly rare that you just get this perfect, impeccable hold, this general hold that's exactly the same all the way across. It's way more rare for you to find that. So that's why I really gravitated to a lot of those holds, because I really did. I felt like this was more akin to what I was finding outside. However, I will say that one of the reasons why I gravitated to the Moonboard is because when growing up in the South, with horse pens being my local zone, you didn't have a lot of that. That's not what the horse pens is like. It's quite opposite of board climbing. And it was very difficult for me to learn on. So I really gravitated towards those types of things on boards. But anyway, I'm kind of tangenting. But what you're saying, you're talking about two different things. It's either the general camp or the specific camp. And pretty much all of those holds are very specific. And I did find that they trained me better for what I would come across outside, simply because it forces you to do something that you're not really wanting to do. And that's, I think, one of the hallmarks of the Moonboard is it forces you to do something you really kind of don't want to do. It wouldn't have been your choice, as opposed to when you go to modern facilities these days, almost everything is set to be quite ergonomic. In fact, almost all of the climbs that are set for members of a facility, they're like 5-star lines. If you found any of those things out, any of those lines outside that are just perfectly ergonomic, they're just in exactly the way you'd want to grab them, that you're talking about a 5-star line. They're all 5-star lines, but that's very rare that you find that. Outside, indoors, they set things for you, and outdoors, it doesn't do that. You have to conform to what is there, and you have to just get through it regardless. So yes, that's why, to answer your question, I do think that those types of holds have a place. That specificity is really key, I think, to translating what you're doing on these boards to outside climbing. It gets you prepared for those uncomfortable situations that are inevitable when you go outside. So,
and that probably makes sense for how those boards came to be, where they were very training focused. And yes, I think that culture and that board culture has, there was a love of it. You can even see in those Moon videos that they get sucked into those climbs, and I think I want to say it's Sam, maybe it's Ben. They talk about how they're like, damn, I just want to do this climb. And they joke about how they get obsessed with it, even though it's not like an outdoor boulder. So that, I think that ethos still, or emerged from it, but that it began as a training thing for the outdoors. And so that idea of it being kind of uncomfortable and weird, it's funny because what you said, how indoors it's all comfortable and perfect, and how that would be a 5-star line, it's funny how we covet that outdoors, but that's not exactly how outdoors works. And then sometimes outdoors becomes famous because something's awkward and weird. Like I always think of either Skeleton Key or Gentleman's Project that has, it's like a V11 in Joe's Valley where you like do a crazy gasto cling like way over your head.
Gentleman's Project. Yep.
Gentleman's Project. Okay. And like, it just looks so weird. That would typically not be allowed to be set in a gym because of the injurious potential there. And I think you said it perfectly, where one of the things I learned about climbing through my first stint on the Moonboard is that it asks you to do things that you don't want to do. And that really the trick is to commit and try hard. And when we're talking about jumping and latching, there's one thing to jump and latch a nice comfy edge, and it's another to jump and latch like a spraggly, weird Vulcan grip that's a side pull, but you have to give it your all to even get there. And then you have to like hold that swing, and it feels weird. And I can see why it is potentially leads to more injury, but it also teaches you, like when you go outdoors and you have to jump into some weird thunder cling, like you have to just want it. Like actually, yeah, that's the phrase that I remember learning. I was like, oh, you gotta want it. And that's like the way through, you know?
It's yeah, and that's what I think is cool about the Moonboard is it's so it's effective in its simplicity that and how it makes you do those things. Like its purpose is to make you feel uncomfortable, and that is effective for getting strong and for getting strong outside.
100%.
But like you just said, it's also why it can be dangerous to easily overdo it on that board. But that's the risk you take. I have a saying. It's like progression is found on the line between injury and going nowhere, and that board really helps you tote that line. You're really toting that line on that board. It's a tightrope on that board.
That's a good little saying there, man, and it's really true. This is what's tricky. Is I'm always like, don't get injured, don't get injured, don't get injured. Getting injured sucks. 2 steps back, like you really screw yourself. But if you're not willing to get into that realm where injury might be possible, then you like almost by definition, progression requires you to progress past what you can do, which is where injury doesn't happen by, doing your daily routine that you've done a million times before where you're not stressing yourself. Like,
well, sometimes it does. Sometimes you pop a pulley and you're warming up, but that's probably from outside factors from being dehydrated or something. But yeah.
It typically is though, is actually like, it is like you were doing something more and you just maybe didn't realize it, whether you were stressed from your job, you haven't been sleeping, you have been climbing like 8 days in a row. And like, you know what I mean? Like progression requires you to head into this kind of gray area of like, it is a little dangerous. It's not something that gets talked about a lot, but people will get injured all the time. And it's a huge bummer. It's not the way to do it. But some people will never get injured and never progress. And you have to hang it out there a little bit. And yeah, the Moonboard asks that of you for sure.
It does. But yeah, watching that video, it just brought me back to climbing on that setup when we didn't have the black and white ones. And then shortly after we did get the black and white ones, and I've talked about this before, they had several layouts that the Moon crew would develop, tons of them that they would put online, and we would try all of them. This is before the LEDs and all that stuff. But I think that it probably got too difficult to do that once the app came out and it started getting really popular, because when you have more layouts and stuff like that, it fractures the database, which is the entire point. And, but I still love that board. Didn't you just get a 2024?
I got 2024 and I actually had it for a year, but I just didn't get a chance to put it up until now. And I got to tell you, I haven't climbed on it yet because I still have to set screw it all in. But I got to tell you, those new blue holds are, what is it, polyurethane, PU or is PE? I can't remember which one's the old school one that chips.
Polyester resin. Yeah,
polyester resin.
Uh-huh. Yeah. And I think that's what they use across all of theirs. We use polyurethane.
No, I don't think that those white and black holds are. I think they've now... So the blue ones are now that old school style, and they ship it to you in a way that's very careful so they don't get chipped. And it's supposed to. I could have
sworn back in the day the white and black ones were resin too, because I remember driving a set screw in the corner of one of them and just breaking the shit out of it. But maybe I could be wrong. I don't know.
You might be right from that era of 2010, but I'm pretty sure that they switched to PU and now they're going back to it. And I think it's because it's supposed to last longer, but also that idea of it being kind of cool to the touch, or, being better in hot weather. Very cool. So I'm looking forward to that because it's summer.
I climbed on it the other day, dude. I think you're going to freaking love it. I think to me, it feels like a Moonboard. One of the characteristics of a Moonboard in my mind, to me, it feels like, and this is not a complaint, this isn't a dig. Moonboard is all hands in my opinion. Like it just is all hands. You are failing or succeeding depending on what you can do in your hands. It's kind of not really anywhere else but your hands. And so it is a Moonboard, but I think the hold set is quite nice. There's a lot of big beefy pinches that I really like that are contoured. They're not just they're not just the crazy rugged ones with angles like on the black and white set. And then they've got some that seem to be purposeful, like made to match on. And they've got some like subtly rounded edges on a lot of them. They did a really good job on those blue ones, I think. So I think you're really going to dig it.
Nice. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah, we'll do a pod where we do a little bit more of a deep dive on that, because now that I have it up and it's in my garage, and also it's hot now, so less climb outdoors, I'm going to be digging into it. I wanted to talk about that video that they did on the 2016, but I want to save it for the next time, because the thing that was a big deal about is that is the intro to the LEDs and the app. And I'm impressed with you having access to it and being part of the community in 2010. But honestly, I just feel like it didn't really hit people's radar until 2016.
It was definitely a lot more manual. You had to print it off. You had to go online. You had to submit videos like as if you were submitting it on YouTube. It was a whole other deal, but it definitely helped with the accessibility of it, and getting it out there, having an app and LEDs.
Yeah, I just want to shout out to Moon if they're listening, to do more of those videos of the history. I thought it was really cool hearing about the OG board. I don't know. I like the one in 2016. It also blew my mind hearing that the most repeated climb at something like 85,000 repeats. That's a lot.
That is a lot.
Like,
that is crazy.
It's a lot.
It has been out for 15 years, but
it's just a lot,
still,
though.
That's
a lot.
Like, there's a lot.
I don't know.
I bet there's like crags out there that does. Outdoor. Well, of course there's not, because there's an accessibility thing. But
actually, yeah. But no, that's a good point right there, dude. Is what you just said is that problem is the most climbed climb ever. Is kind of what you just said.
Probably.
Wow. That's cool. That's really interesting. Damn.
Boards.
Okay. That's too fun.
What are we on? 4 hours now?
Yeah, I know. I'm psyched. This is Board Talk. I'm glad to have started a series, dude. And yeah, it's something that's near and dear to both of our hearts, and surprisingly near and dear to many, many of you out there. And I thought that was a cool note to end on there, where boards probably have the most climbed on climb ever in the history of indoors, outdoors, etc. And my hunches is that is where we're headed more and more. So I'm glad that we can support the community, give voice to the community, and that was fun, dude. I'm psyched.
It was fun. Yeah, I'm excited for more, man. I personally love this shit, so I'm glad that other people do too.
All right, well, let's do another one. I'll see you in a month, man.
All right, sounds good. Thanks.
Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like even more content, go to patreon.com/testpiece. And while you're at it, share this podcast with someone you know who would love it. And please leave us a review or rating at wherever you get your podcasts. We've also got tons of great content on YouTube and Instagram, so don't forget to like and subscribe there. Okay, see you next week.